For those who don't know me, I am Lydia Vieth. I'm a research analyst at ACT, and I focus on our new technology research, so looking at our decarbonization forecasts and our autonomous research and forecasting, which is why I've got Wiley Deck with me today for a little chat. Wiley, well, let me sit down first. Yeah. Wiley served in the U.S. House of Representatives in various roles for over 20 years, right?
22 years.
Quite a long time. Then he went over to FMCSA, served in various roles with FMCSA, so well-versed in the world of regulations and safety, everything you can imagine. And now he is at Plus, where he is the company's government affairs and public policy leader, conducting their strategy outreach and working with regulators on the issues of autonomy and safety. Naturally, I know, having talked with you before, I know safety is a big concern of yours, as it should be for everyone. So I think just to start, if you want to tell us a little bit about Plus, what you do at Plus,
Sure.
And then we can, kind of get into what the autonomous landscape is looking like these days, where we are, where we're going.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks, Lydia. So my 25 years in federal government ended up at Plus, and Plus, you may not, some of you may or may not be aware of Plus. We're kind of approaching things a little bit differently in the autonomous spectrum. We are an L4 developing company for not only trucks, but also for other modes of vehicles, other pass cars and lighter trucks. But we're approaching things in a little bit differently than everybody else. While our goal is level 4, we have a high level 2++ ADAS system that provides functionality of autonomy for today for fleets. We've been installing commercially since early 2021, and our systems are in trucks all over the country today. And as we put these trucks on the road, we're collecting that data and improving our level 4 system as we get those edge cases that those drivers see regularly out on the road, that you can't just say, okay, I'm going to simulate this and figure out what I would do in response to this situation. So we're collecting that data and improving not only our L2++ system, but also our level 4 end product, so that when the public is comfortable, when the technology is there, when the regulatory regime is in place to accept full driver out, we'll be ready. And at that time, we'll probably have billions of real world miles on our systems.
All right. And I think, something that my colleague Ann and I learned as we completed an autonomous report and forecast last fall is that each of the autonomous tech companies have very different approaches to coming to market. So Plus is taking this unique approach where it's like, we want to do level 4, but we're going about it where we can start making money now and get this into trucks that can operate today.
Right. And if you look at where the industry has gone, this is not a revolution for the industry. This is an evolution, because again, it was mentioned earlier that the time frame for the full driver out level 4 autonomous keeps getting pushed back. When is that going to happen? Nobody can really tell you with a clear conscience of when that would be at any significant scale. Think about it. If you had 1,000 level 4 autonomous trucks on the road today, or in 10 years, I think that's a fair assessment. What would that be in the grand scheme of things? There are 4 million Class 8 trucks on the road today. 1,000 trucks isn't but a grain of sand on that beach. So that's one of the reasons why we're kind of approaching it differently. And at the end of the day, we think it's a safer way to approach driver out.
Mm-hmm. And so getting into this timeline and, why does it take so long to get there? You know, we know it's a combination of, as you said, the regulatory issues, making sure that the safety cases are
Yeah.
well built up. What kind of, you know, where is the federal government on this? Where is FMCSA currently standing on, you know, we know we don't have a level 4 driver out autonomy regulation or rule of any kind.
Not in particular, that's correct. While I was at FMCSA, we made the determination that under the regulations, no human is required to be in the cab. All that the regs talk about are operators and drivers. They don't specifically say that those need to be a human. So we interpreted that as it would allow for full autonomy. So at the same time, we started rulemaking. This was back in 2019 that we put out an advance notice of proposed rulemaking on how to incorporate these new technologies safely onto the roads. Well, we didn't get it out to the next stage of a notice of proposed rulemaking before the last administration left. And the current administration has kept pushing it back. And back in January, they just announced a supplemental advanced notice of proposed rulemaking, and which kind of delays the process even further as we move towards that next stage. So at this point, on the federal side with FMCSA, there's not much movement. There's no overarching framework of federal regulations that would preempt the states, that would set a national standard on how these trucks are to be operated. So that's what we're waiting on. They just announced some new studies that they're going to be conducting that may or may not delay the rulemaking, just because they may want to wait to see what the study data comes back before they advance the rule. So kind of a wait and see approach to see what they're going to do.
Right. The, I guess, opposite track of many states who have already adopted legislation allowing for testing and operation of, you know, driver out commercial vehicles.
Yeah, that's interesting because, yeah, there are quite a few states out there that allow operation of the level 3, 4, and 5 automated trucks. Yeah, but you have to jump through all sorts of different hoops and permits for some states. Some states like Texas and Arizona are pretty hands-off. They have some permitting, minor permit procedures, but other than that, they're very open on the use. And then you have states like California where it is against the law to operate a truck, anything over 10,000 pounds, at levels 3, 4, and 5. And if you're not familiar with the levels of automation, if you haven't read the study, it's a great study.
Encourage you all to
encourage everybody to buy it and read it. It's very comprehensive. But level 2 is no automation. It's just your basic truck, human driver. Level 1, you're starting to venture into automatic emergency braking and that cruise control and that type of stuff. Level 2, you now have adaptive cruise control, you have lane keep assist, you have automatic emergency braking, maybe some blind spot detection. The higher levels in level 2, you have lane centering, you have lane change capabilities, but all, again, the driver has to be in control. In level 3, which you won't hear any fleets talking level 3 automation for trucks just for liability purposes, where the driver can turn the truck over in a specific domain, such as interstate or highway, and the truck does all the driving. The driver can take a nap, can read a book, all that, but have to be ready at a moment's notice to take over, just in case it encounters something that goes wrong. Well, how quickly can you wake up from a nap and seconds trying to take control of the truck and be safe? Yeah. So nobody's talking level 3 for trucks. So then you move into level 4, which total driver out in a certain operating design domain, again, hub to hub, and where you don't need the driver in the cab except for the surface streets. And then level 5 is it can operate just like a human in pretty much any condition that you put it on. So those are the levels of automation.
Right. So does this, what many call it a patchwork of state regulations, obviously we're not talking, next year or the year after in terms of rolling this out, but does that, if the federal level never or keeps delaying a rulemaking, does this patchwork ever kind of hinder that deployment?
Eventually, right? It's not helpful when you're trying to move interstate commerce from one state to another, and each state has different regulatory requirements on operating an autonomous truck within that state. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be that detrimental in the short term because most of the companies that are pushing forward on the level 4 are operating in Texas and Arizona and other states that are very open to the deployment of these types of vehicles. And like I said, if you had 1,000 level 4 trucks out on the road in 10 years, I think that's a fair assumption on the numbers. They're going to be operating in the Sun Belt anyways, in Texas and Arizona. So you can establish the safety measurements in the operations of those vehicles in those states, and then you'll start seeing the other states start opening up. I think that there will be increased pressure upon FMCSA to actually take the step of preempting states' regulations on the operations of the vehicle, because it's getting that acceptance from the public that is one of the key things. I mean, you think they're scared now looking over an 80,000-pound vehicle driving right next to them. At least they see a driver in there. But if there's nobody in the cab, it heightens that level of anxiety that people have driving next to trucks.
Right. And I think, it's the passenger cars as well that we think about when we think about what's the sort of driving force behind autonomy, why do we need it, what are we really getting at, and one of the, sort of big components is safety. Yep. Human drivers, whether they're in a truck or a car, are not perfect drivers. In a lot of cases, it's the passenger vehicle making sort of erratic decisions. It's, causing accidents.
Exactly.
But maybe talk us through some of these safety concerns and features that the ADS systems can bring, and how or why building that safety case is such a crucial part of the process.
Sure. I think again it goes back making the public and specifically the regulators comfortable that you're not some fly-by-night putting a truck out on the road that's not going to be safe for the motoring public around you. I think that the biggest benefit from these types of vehicles in their operation is that they see 360 degrees around the vehicle, thousands of times a second. They're measuring to millimeter distances for the vehicles that are in multi-lanes around the vehicle. So if you had a driver driving the vehicle and he's looking out the left window and somebody cuts in from the right and then slams on their brakes, he's not going to be able to respond in time to avoid a crash. But you have a system that's constantly watching around the vehicle. It doesn't get distracted. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't get angry. It's not fighting for real estate, trying to keep two jerks from driving up the emergency lane and cutting in front of the vehicle. It's going to be a courteous driver. They're not going to speed. They're going to be the optimal driver that you would want on the road next to you. It's just getting that data out there to present that. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration started this process. They put out a standing general order last year where vehicles that have automated systems, whether they're ADAS or ADS, automated driving systems, they have to report any incidents involving those vehicles with ADS within 24 hours within a day, the first report, and then you have to report again within 10 days with more information, and then you have to file monthly reports. Now, my company, like I said, we've been installing our system in vehicles since February of 2021. We've had 0 incidents with our trucks, with our customers' trucks utilizing our system. And if you look at the records of the others in my industry, virtually no incidents. And the incidents that have occurred are generally caused by other vehicles, totally unrelated to the truck itself. So again, it's that heightening of that understanding of the people of what these systems can do and what safety mechanisms there are. And I think we're starting to see that as people get in these passenger cars and with these new technologies, they can demonstrate it for themselves, because not everybody can get an autonomous truck and take that experience.
Well, it's really fun if you get a chance.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah, that's a great point, though, is the public acceptance, the education. I think that was, just in talking to our study participants, last year, all the participants, without naming names, who were the, AV tech participants, were very much willing to say, like, talk about this, there's so many ideas, because that's the challenge, is just how do we get everyone else up to speed. Yeah. As California is dealing with this right now, where, a bill was presented to, ban driver out testing operations in California, which currently is not, testing is not allowed right now.
It's not allowed,
but,
it's illegal.
They're going to take the additional step to, put it on hold for a full 5 years for sure, and then look at it again. And
yeah,
I know you've been dealing with some of the lovely back and forth that comes along with all that.
Yeah, so part of my responsibility is as government affairs, not only dealing with the federal government and what they're doing, but a lot of the activity in this space is being done on the state level. And in California, AB 316 was introduced this summer in the state house, in the assembly, and it passed by large margins. Only 4 assembly persons voted against it, and it made its way into the Senate, and the California Senate has held a couple of hearings on it. And what this would do is it would allow testing and deployment of these automated trucks, but it would require a human in the cab. You could let them be hands-off and let the system do the driving, but you have to have somebody in the cab. Well, obviously that's counterproductive to our end goal, but the one bright side of that was that you would be able to do deployment and testing in California under that law. Even though you had to keep somebody in the cab, you could still test in California, which you can't do right now. But yesterday, the governor actually came out in full opposition to the bill, which he has not done before on any legislation. So this is a unique situation where it's the path forward for this bill is now in question, whether or not it'll move out of the Senate, which still puts us in that quandary of you still can't test and you still can't deploy utilizing class levels 3, 4, and 5 in trucks in California. So the state DMV has already held a couple of workshops on this matter, and we're hoping that if they get rid of the bill, they move forward with the DMV rulemaking that will allow the natural progression of driver out without requiring a human in the cab.
Maybe switching gears, maybe not here. I think, talking about the driver piece of it, one thing that you'll hear over and over again is if you want to be a truck driver, you can be a truck driver. You're not going to lose your job because autonomous trucks are going to be on the road. And that's when we were doing our study and looking at this, we were focusing on those hub-to-hub freight hauling applications where you're really just trying to maximize utilization of the asset, the truck, which are often longer haul, so takes out the, any worry of a driver being able to get home at night. We know we've got a driver shortage, so that's an issue. I think that's a very hard piece to get across to the driving community. It's a big deal to them.
It is, and they'll argue that there is no driver shortage. But, and if you want to look at it technically, maybe there's not, but the shortage is where, how do you get that person that has a CDL to get back in the truck? Because there are plenty that have left the industry that kept their CDLs and are working other jobs. They're just keeping their CDL in their back pocket because, hey, I may need this one day. So I don't want to have to take the test over again. I don't want to have to, go through training all over again. So I'm going to keep this going. So yeah, you may have a lot of people out there with active CDLs, but they're not driving and they have no intention to drive anytime soon. So is there a driver shortage? I think it's up for debate. And then you've got the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse that went into effect a few years ago that has caught quite a few people. I think they're up to 130,000 drivers that they have tagged that have either drug or alcohol problems. And what was it, last time I saw, about 100,000 of those have yet to go through a return to duty program. So odds are they're out of the industry. So we just lost 100,000 drivers because they didn't want to go through the return to duty program, which is rehab, and reinstate their CDLs. So there are a lot of issues around the driver shortage, but it's, and this is something that we encountered and as we were moving the rulemaking through FMCSA, is that, again, I go back to what the statistic I gave earlier, just for Class 8 trucks, there are 4 million trucks on the road today. 4 million. How quickly are they going to automate? And I'll throw out some other statistics. About 99% of the industry, there are little over a million motor carrier companies that are registered with FMCSA today. 99% of those are companies with 100 or fewer trucks. How quickly are they going to automate? Not anytime soon. And then you throw into the fact that you looked at the cost of electric trucks. They're pretty expensive. So are fully autonomous trucks. They're very expensive right now. So if you were to buy a truck, it'd probably be more than the electric trucks that you're looking at now. So how many of those are going to get sold? And you go back to my 1,000 trucks in 10 years is more likely scenario versus 4 million Class 8s. And then when you add in all the way down to Class 3, you're at about 48 million trucks. How quickly are they going to automate? So if you're a truck driver, and what we've always told folks, if you start as a truck driver today, even at 18 doing intrastate, you can retire as a truck driver if you want. The median age for truck drivers first joining into the industry is 36. The average age of a truck driver is 55. And you're seeing fewer and fewer younger people entering into the industry. It's going to come to a head one of these days soon that you're not going to have enough drivers out there to move the products. And that's why you're starting to see, and again, it was mentioned earlier, the hub-to-hub issue And as distribution facilities move closer and they start putting more around, because first people are getting used to same-day deliveries, next-day deliveries, and two-day deliveries, it makes it more economical for the shippers. But it also brings more women into the industry, because one of their key things is safety. They don't like stopping at rest stops and truck stops and situations that may put them in danger. So they're reluctant to join the industry. But if you can pretty much guarantee them that they'd be home every night or every other night so they can be with their families, you're going to see a rise in the number of women entering into the industry. And that's where these regional routes come in. You turn over the hub-to-hub to autonomous, and it's just back and forth, and you're going to need drivers to get them to through the first and last miles, just because once you get off the interstates and the divided highways, it becomes very complicated to navigate those routes, especially with the need for HD mapping, where you have to have a route that's HD mapped before the system can even operate on that route.
And I'm glad you brought up the HD mapping and, talking about the ODD, operational design domain. That's crucial to all of it, because you can't operate if you don't have the ODDs, set and secure. How long does that process take to get the ADS comfortable? Comfortable. Okay. Can a technology be comfortable?
It depends on the route and how complicated the route is. It could take a month of HD mapping before you even put the truck on the route, and that's driving it multiple times and allowing it to see everything, the infrastructure around it, and all that. So it certainly makes it challenging, because if, let's just say you're on I-95 and you've got your route mapped out, and there's a crash on 95 and the law enforcement is diverting you off onto a side road, how does the truck handle that? It may not have been on that route. Does it stay in the lane and not move? Does it pull over to the shoulder and stop there and wait for instructions from headquarters? What does it do? If you don't have that mapped out right now, you can't drive it. So there are a lot of challenges that are still out there, and we just announced a partnership with Transurban yesterday. Transurban is an Australian-based company that do toll roads, and they're extensively throughout Australia, but they also have here in the U.S. The express lanes on I-95 around Washington, D.C. That they manage for the state of Virginia, but we're going to be working on a system together to allow the autonomous trucks, the level 4 trucks, to receive information from the infrastructure on what road conditions are ahead, what's the traffic like, and in Australia, what are there kangaroos on the road? So they're sending that, the infrastructure will be sending that information to our level 4 trucks that will be operating there, and perfecting that system so that at some point in the future, you can easily install these systems globally in the U.S. without significant infrastructure requirements, so that you have the infrastructure providing additional data that will make these vehicles safer. Because when you're when you're utilizing these trucks, they're seeing hundreds, maybe out to 1,000 meters. But what if they were getting information on their route from the infrastructure, a kilometer out or a mile out, that, hey, there's animals on the road, there's a crash up ahead, be prepared. And that way the system can accommodate and adjust for those situations. So it's those extra sensory perceptions that the vehicle can get to make them safer.
Right. And this, I think, is a really cool, idea and thing to work on because, I suppose you don't technically need a smart infrastructure. I think,
Yep.
most companies we've talked to would say, no, we have to be able to operate on these roads as they exist. Otherwise, we're never getting out here.
Yeah. Because you can't depend on government to spend the money on AV-only lanes.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, it's also that, no, please do. That's what I was getting to, is that you don't want to have to fully revamp every interstate and highway major freight corridor to have a special, road or special,
Right, because how would you pay for that? It'd have to be tolled. And those companies that use it, or the individuals with their AV cars, would have to pay a toll to be on there. And how much utilization would it get? How quickly would those companies that put in those toll roads be able to recoup the cost of installing that road? And then there's the political side of that, where you may have an empty road that not very many people are using, and then traffic building up dramatically on, maybe it's rush hour or whatever, and you get disgruntled constituents that are calling their congressman and say, look at this, there's a lane there that we could be using, but it's restricted to us. So there's a lot of issues surrounding that, and I'll go back to my earlier statement on HD mapping. There are some other limitations that are caused by regulations that can hamper the adoption of level 4 trucking. And one you'd probably never think of, and that's under the FMCSA regulations, if your truck is disabled on the side of the road, who puts out the triangles in an autonomous truck? It's required, out 100 feet behind the vehicle. How do they put the triangles and flares out behind the vehicle? There's been some proposals. There's an exemption going through FMCSA right now. I don't know whether it's going to be accepted or not, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's been one of the major roadblocks for the companies trying to figure out how do you do this. And I've talked with folks, we'll just put a pod on the back of the cab, and you'll have a drone fly out and fly it out behind the truck, and then once it sets the triangle down, it'll go and land on the back of the trailer and wait until it's ready to pick the triangle back up and go back to its perch. Like, that sounds needlessly complicated. And then somebody else said, we'll have a little rover drop out from the bottom of the cab and it'll drive out and put out the triangle. Yeah, but what if somebody steals it? So you get all these interesting scenarios of how to solve that simple problem that's easily solved with the human in the cab. The other thing is smart trailers.
I was going to say, I've heard you mention them before, and I know we've got some trailer people in the audience.
Yeah, I've long been an advocate that you cannot safely put out a level 4 truck on the road without the truck knowing what's going on with the trailer. Well, the trailer's on fire. Should the truck still be driving down the road? Maybe it should pull over. But how does it know? What if, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance put out their enhanced pre-trip inspection for these vehicles. And it's a pretty rigorous inspection criteria that you have to go through, and the person doing it has to be trained and certified by CVSA. It's a 40-hour course, week-long. It's very intensive. But they sign off onto it, and they electronically transmit it to the truck. And as the truck bypasses the inspection stations, it transmits that information to the inspection station, plus the health of the cab. And that's nice. That's wonderful. But again, what happens when a retread comes off that trailer in the middle of the road and the cab doesn't know it? That's an out-of-service violation. What if there's a leak in the brake lines? Out of service. 80% of all violations at roadside are track to the trailer. And if the truck doesn't know what's going on with the trailer, I don't think you're operating safely. What if, as they're doing shutting the doors on the trailer, and they don't catch that top latch at the top? And as they're driving along, it comes more and more loose, hit a bump, boom, that door's open. Now, I've had some of our competitors say, oh, there'll be cameras and we'll be able to see that door is open. Well, what if it's only open a little bit before it comes fully wide open and it's dumping goods all over the interstate, causing calamity everywhere? That's an out of service violation. So you can't put these trucks out on the road without a smart trailer. And there's time to do it. We're in a ramp up to full driver out trucks. So there's a way to do this in the time that we have before you see full scale production in the industry. Mm-hmm.
And actually, forgive me, whoever I was talking to last night from a trailer leasing company, the trailer guy should be excited about this because you've got increased utilization of trucks. You're going to need more trailers. So we might be, 5 years out.
But you also have, no disrespect to my trailer friends out there, but you've got companies out there that are Phillips Connect and others that are doing aftermarket sensor add-ons to trailers, and they can do them fairly quickly. And depending on what sensors you want, but there are a few key sensors that all you need to do is look at what's cited at roadside and violations to see what sensors should be on a smart trailer equipped to a smart truck. Very simple to do. It's just something that we should be seriously looking at. I think in the rulemaking that the FMCSA is working on, they didn't come out and explicitly call for smart trailers, but there are questions leading in that direction.
Right. Yeah. Again, just there's sort of any incremental safety you can attain is always better. I'm going to open it up to the audience for any questions.
Easy questions only.
Yeah, easy only. Take your time to think about them. But Amanda's in the back with microphones, so
wave really high.
She'll find you if you've got any. I think, so we've talked a lot about safety, about the regulations. Maybe just, as we wrap up in our final few minutes, talking about the business case for these. It's...
Yeah. So, what 40% of the cost in operating a truck is in the driver. And if there is a way to reduce that, and ancillary costs, fuel, maintenance, more utilization, since you don't have the hours of service restrictions on an autonomous truck that you do with a human driver. So that's where you see the bulk of the benefits. But those jobs that the autonomous trucks are going to be doing are the boring jobs, the back and forth, A to B, B to A to B, and so that's when you get into all the ancillary, and we go back to the people worried about these machines taking over their jobs. You can do A to B, B to A, but when you start adding C, D, and E to the trip, it gets incredibly complicated for these machines to be operating like that. So if you can keep those trucks operating, if they tell you they're going to be able to get more than 19 hours a day out of these trucks,
This isn't 24/7.
It's not 24/7. It's maybe 19/6. But because you got to look at downtime for maintenance, time to move trailers around, and that's where it's going to get complicated for the companies that start moving in this direction. Is that what changes do they have to make in their hub and spoke and other drop scenarios to accommodate a very efficient truck that's operating nonstop almost. And how you got to be able to get the goods there. You got to be able to get the goods loaded onto the trailer. There's no detention time with these things. Get the trailer loaded on the truck, get it going. Once it gets you have to be able to unhook it, hook on the next trailer. Is it an empty trailer? Is it a loaded trailer? You got to figure out all those. Is it going to be deadheading? That's not very efficient, I would say at some point. Because of the efficiency of the system and the lack of efficiency and everything else, you're going to have some downtime incorporated into your trucks as a result, just because we're inefficient.
Right, and that's what we found in our TCO modeling, looking at AVs, is it's really, not until you can really increase that utilization that it is going to make any sense. And it takes a while to get there, because as you say, if we don't have these perfect, transfer hub locations at just the right spots, you're not going to be able to just keep things going and maximize to the fullest potential there. It is that very slow, steady sort of build out.
There's going to be a big
up.
learning curve, I think.
Yeah.
I think people have an idea of what it's going to look like, but until you actually do it and see the full operation of these vehicles, things will change dramatically, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what is next for Plus? Are you guys predicting when, at this point, your level 4 will be?
No, we're not looking at any crystal
not setting
balls on
anything
that.
in stone.
We go back and you look at the market, and if you go with what I said, 1,000 trucks in the next 10 years being level 4, I think is a fair assessment. It's probably going to be a lot lower than that, but let's just say 1,000. Out of 4 million trucks, just Class 8, that are on the road today, we've seen in the industry putting all your eggs in that one basket of level 4 has done. Embark's gone, Locomation's gone, Waymo, they've turned their focus away from trucks for now, focused fully on passenger cars. Too Simple is leaving the United States. So it leaves, we've seen this coming for some time, and a consolidation of the industry, just like electric trucks, right? And you have a few of us that are still out there. But if you look at the market, in that 1,000 trucks, it's going to be us, it's going to be Aurora, it's probably going to be Torque, because they're a subsidiary of Daimler, maybe Kodiak, and maybe Wabi, maybe. But you're sharing that pot of 1,000 trucks. And as a startup, for most of us, how does that keep you in business? How do you tell your investors that, hey, we've got, 139 of those 1,000 trucks are ours over 10 years? So the way we're approaching it, as we're doing L4, but we're also doing a highly automated level 2, and that over the next 15 to 20 years is going to be 80% of the market. So that way we can show our investors that we're taking advantage of that side of the market, and that's L2++, and there's only 3 of us there right now.
Right.
Mobileye, Tesla, and us.
I've got a question in the back and then a question over here. That one was first.
Wiley, what can we do to partner with the insurance industry to help move this along?
Partner with the insurance industry?
Yeah, like it should reduce rates.
We've already been in discussions with some insurance, not only the association, but also various insurance companies. I think the challenge for them there is the data right? There's not enough data out there for them to really jump out on that ledge. Obviously, we have insurance. It's very expensive. But for large-scale adoption of these technologies, I think the insurance companies will kind of hedge their bets. They'll see, what's going to happen, and what I predict is that you'll see the mega fleets out there adopting these first because they're self-insured. They have the capacity to do so. Their trucks are going to be extremely expensive, and they've got the network to be able to keep them busy. And then once that data starts coming in, because their insurance company that covers them on the upper levels will want that data. And not only that, but the developer and the OEM will want to provide insurance companies that data so that as we move down the road, it will open it up for insurance coverage.
All right, and then Bill with the final question, I think. We are out of time.
Great information. So, just to fill that out to some extent. Can you say, is the task ahead now just locking down the integration of the sensor packages that are there and doing that right? Or do we still need some new sensors, or we're not really clear what sensors we need to make this fully work?
No, I think the sensor suite is there. We utilize, and everybody else pretty much utilizes the trifecta, as I call them, of sensors. Radar, cameras, and LiDAR. And the benefits for those are that they complement each other very well. For instance, LiDAR has difficulties seeing through heavy rain, but you back that up with camera and radar. So they're complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses. So that's the suite that pretty much most everybody is utilizing. It makes for a better performing vehicle. So it's not the sensor suite, it's the experience, right? With a human, you go through your driver's ed classes, and they give you all the basics, and you do your road test and your skills test, and you get your driver's license, knowing that you'll still learn as you drive more and more. I'm teaching my oldest daughter how to drive, so it's been a wonderful experience. But they have the ability to intuit scenarios. Okay, I gotta watch, because the kid over there is playing with the ball. I gotta slow down and be extra vigilant. You gotta program a vehicle to say, okay, that kid may lose that ball, and it rolls into the street and the kid comes chasing it. Not an easy thing to do. So whereas you have intuitive learning that people can do, it's programming learning that you have to do for the autonomous vehicles. And also, when you have the various sensors and it sees the ball with radar, camera, and LiDAR, it has to be able to say, okay, is that a ball? What is that? Is that a kid? So you may not know, so those CAPTCHA images that when you're online and it says to prove you're a human, and it shows you pick out the images with a bridge, and it shows you some are weird viewpoints of the bridge, and you're training AI by doing that. You're not proving that you're a human, you're training their AI systems. Because if the system is not sure, I mean, you can intuit that it's a bridge very easily, but how does a computer know it's a bridge? But now, you've shown, you've shown what it is.
I wish I had water to give you.
I forgot my water, it's right there.
Oh, we have one. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good.
Oh, we're out of time anyways.
I know, so we are out of time. I saw a couple other hands, so I know Wiley is not flying until tomorrow morning, so he will be around for more
Yep,
questions.
hit me up.
And Wiley, before I let you go, we know it is your birthday tomorrow, so from Act Research, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give it up for Wiley.